The Green Mile is one of those films that everyone seems to have seen. When talking about truly great movies, people will mention The Green Mile and then react like this when I say I haven't seen it.
You have never watched The Green Mile?
That's sacrilege. How can you have not seen The Green Mile?
You've never seen The Green Mile?
What? You've never seen The Green Mile? Everybody's seen that.
Why are you recording, mate?
I don't know much about the film. It stars Tom Hanks, a great actor, the late Michael Clarke Duncan, another great actor. It takes place on death row, and it's adapted from a Stephen King novel. I'm also aware that it is quite sad, so I'm prepared for that. Will I find this as amazing and as moving as everyone else, or will this be another time when I go against the flow, like my opinion on Rick and Morty? It sucks. Here's my review of The Green Mile. In a retirement home, we meet Paul Edgecombe, a man who likes plain white toast and long walks to a remote cabin. During a viewing of Top Hat, Paul breaks down into tears and is consoled by his friend Elaine. Paul then tells the story of 1935 and an encounter with John Coffey. In 1935, Paul is a prison guard on death row, or the Green Mile as they call it. John arrives convicted of rape and murdering 2 girls. He is an absolute giant of a man, but gentle, going so far as being scared of the dark. The evidence is pretty damning though. John was found with the girls repeating over and over again that he was trying to take it back. Even John's defense attorney thought he did it. Paul is a great believer in keeping the prisoners calm and happy, treating them with dignity until their final moment. And for the most part, the prisoners show their respect back. New inmate William, or Billy, does not. Initially attacking Paul and his team, but at every opportunity pissing, spitting and verbally abusing them, often finding himself isolated in a padded room with a straitjacket on. Dale, on the other hand, is an inmate who has a good rapport with the other prisoners and the guards. When a mouse finds its way onto the Green Mile, Dale keeps it as a pet and discovers it will fetch a cotton reel. He names the mouse Mr. Jingles, and the guards are happy for him to keep the mouse as a pet. All that is aside from Percy. Percy, quite frankly, is an arsehole. As Percy is the nephew of the state's First Lady, he gets away with everything, antagonizing the prisoners, making fun of corpses, and being useless in the fight with Billy. Percy demands that he be put in charge of Dale's execution, and in exchange he will quit, something Paul and his team really want. Just after the attack from Billy, Paul discovers that John can heal by touch. In this case, his serious bladder infection after Paul gets hit in the crotch. Wait, was that what the President was doing in Metal Gear Solid 2?
I'm prepared to face the consequences of my betrayal.
What are you... What the...
You're a man?
John then releases a swarm from his mouth before going to bed. In a truly hateful act, Percy stamps on and kills Mr. Jingles just to upset Dale. But John requests that he have the body, and similar to Paul's UTI, he takes the death away from Mr. Jingles and brings him back to life. This leads Paul to think about the warden's wife Melinda, who is suffering with an inoperable brain tumour, and so a plan is hatched to try and smuggle John, a giant might I remind you, out of a heavily guarded prison, take him to the warden's house at the dead of night, and have him take the tumour away from Melinda. The plan works, but it takes a lot out of John. The swarm doesn't leave him until after he gets back to the prison, where upon releasing Percy from the padded room as per the plan, the swarm leaves John and enters Percy, who trance-like walks over and shoots Billy, killing him in his cell. John reveals to Paul that he knows Billy killed the 2 girls, and that John was accused of killing them. He shows Paul a vision by telepathic touch, confirming this. Paul questions whether he wants to let John go, but John is tired of living, and has accepted his fate. Short of watching a movie for the first time. The movie? Top Hat. John's execution goes ahead, with witnesses condemning him and the guards trying very hard to hide their tears. Back at the retirement home, Paul states he never executed another person, and when questioned by Elaine about an inconsistency in the timeline, Paul takes her to the cabin and shows her an older and greyer Mr. Jingles. Both the mouse and Paul absorb some of John's essence. Paul is 108 years old and has outlived his wife, children and all his friends. Paul isn't sure if he's immortal, but now he too wants death. The film ends with Paul standing over Elaine's grave, having outlived her too. I have to say I was surprised at the supernatural nature of the film, even if it was just one element in John Coffey's character. There's a debate to be had over what John is. Is he an angel, reincarnated Jesus, a wizard? It's hinted that he's been alive for quite a long time. He has a similar attitude to that of old Paul, but he's not as aged and doesn't know how his power is obtained. But he does know what he can do. Overall, the story is really good, and the long length, which Tom Hanks once justified by saying, "It's more movie for your dollar," is worth it. However, this film just didn't grab me. It is sad, and there are moments such as Dell's death scene which made me feel, but unlike other films that I have cried at, I can't say this had the impact I was expecting. I'm told the original book is almost one-to-one to the film, but as this isn't a book review, I'll just take people's word on that. This was one of the categories The Green Mile got nominated for at the Oscars that year. It had 4 nominations for Best Supporting Actor, Best Soundtrack, Best Adaptation from Previously Released Media, and Best Picture, but it lost all 4. One of them to The Matrix, surprisingly. I noticed some similarities to another Stephen King novel/film, The Shawshank Redemption, as well as Of Mice and Men. John's character has a very similar demeanour to Lenny from Of Mice and Men, but with a more magical twist. The dream of a white picket fence and description of Mouseville for Mr. Jingles are also very similar. As for Shawshank, the obvious comparison is the prison setting, but it's more than that. The main character in prison for a crime he didn't commit would both indirectly interact with the killer of his victims. The main difference is about time and about hope. There's an inevitability about The Green Mile, given that it's about death row as opposed to life imprisonment. Perhaps that's why the film didn't grab me. I had a feeling that right at the end, John was going to be executed. There wasn't a happy ending in sight, so therefore, since John had made his peace with it, I too had made my peace with the fact that this character was going to die. A lot is said about the late Michael Clarke Duncan and his performance. It's he that lost out to Best Supporting Actor Oscar to Michael Caine. Not a bad person to lose to. Clarke Duncan is brilliant and a clear standout performance. He steals focus away from Tom Hanks, which is no mean feat. Other characters, though, are one note or forgettable. Only John and Paul have any substance to them. It's enough to carry the story, but that's only because the story is so good. I guess the big thing is that The Green Mile was underwhelming. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't recommend this as a must-see. I guess all the people who said things like,
You've never seen The Green Mile?
oversold it. Still, the Film Review Open Challenge gave me a reason to finally see it, and I'm glad I did. At least now I can talk about it. Next up for the Film Review Open Challenge is Nocturnal Animals, another film I've not seen and know nothing about. Until then, though, thank you very much for watching.
Well, I did. Did you ever hear a dream talking? Well, I